Neil McCabe is on the line with us, conservative columnist with townhall.com, editor of the Washington Mercury News website, thewashingtonmercury.com. Neil, welcome back.
Hey, great to be with you, Tom. I didn't talk to you yesterday, so happy Mother's Day.
Well, thank you. Or I'll pass that along to Louise. And
Very good.
And back at you to any mothers in your family.
Sure. Thank you.
And in fact, let's both wish all of the mothers watching a belated Happy Mother's Day.
We couldn't do it without them, Tom.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here without them, Neil. What I wanted to talk with you today about is Bernie Sanders' platform. And I'll just go through and read the bullet points, just the outline, as it were, and then we can discuss these one by one. Your perspective as a conservative Republican, mine as a progressive liberal Democrat, whatever.
Sure.
Number 1, income and wealth inequality. Number 2, jobs and income. Number 3, campaign finance reform. Number 4, climate change. Number 5, college affordability. Number 6, health care. Number 7, poverty. And number 8, tax reform. So let's go through these one at a time. This is the campaign platform, or at least the early version of the campaign platform on which Senator Sanders is running for president. In the income and wealth inequality, he says, in the United States today, we have the most unequal wealth and income distribution of any major country on Earth, worse than at any time since the 1920s. This is an economy that must be changed in fundamental ways. Your thoughts, sir?
I just don't know how he's going to direct that through government policy.
Roll back the Reagan tax cuts.
We all, unless he's going to go back to picking winners and losers, which is basically what socialism is. I would hope that
that's a lousy cliche, Neil, and that's not true. You know that.
Well, I mean,
when government picks winners, and no, seriously, this is something that you would probably agree with. When government picks winners or losers, it is almost always because the winners lobbied government more effectively than the losers, and that is, a corruption of our government brought to us by the Supreme Court.
Yes, Tom, but then the second step of that is that if we take that power to pick winners and losers away from the government, we basically disenfranchise the tax break brokers and the lobbyists.
No, what you do is you give that power to the very richest. Now you're in a situation where it's the bella omnium et omnia, to quote Thomas Jefferson, the war of all against all, and it becomes the richest win. They set the rules. That's what happens. The only thing that can constrain the great power of enormous wealth is the collective power of all the people in the country. In other words, the government. So, as I said, I think that Bernie's way of dealing with income inequality is to roll back the Reagan tax cuts or some variation thereon, because we didn't have this income inequality before 35 years of Reaganism.
Well, I mean, part of that's a function of tremendous economic growth, but also
no, it's not.
Stop protecting.
We grew faster in the 40s and 50s than we're growing now.
When we had an economic crisis in 2008, 2009, Washington, D.C. protected wealth. And so that's really where your inequality comes from.
No, I agree. When George W. Bush passed 2 TARPs in a row and a stimulus bill, and it all went to rich people and banks, it was wrong. I'm with you.
All right, and who else would it go to? I mean that's the whole
How about people with mortgages they can't pay? I mean, why did the Republicans take away long-term unemployment benefits from people?
No, it's I think if you stopped protecting wealth, I think it would go a great way to creating inequality, because those, you have people who are manning oars, and then you have passengers. A lot of those passengers are very wealthy people protected by the system. It's almost feudalism. And so I would consider maybe your first step would be get rid of the protections for those people.
Such as?
Well, I mean, it's like don't do TARPs anymore. And,
I see.
Get rid of these sort of the cozy relationships between the regulators and the industry.
Okay, well, I can't speak for Bernie, but I as somebody who agrees with his platform, I don't disagree with that. So then income and wealth inequality, we may approach it differently. You don't want to do it with taxes, but
I support the goal.
Yeah, okay. All right, fine. Let's move on to jobs and income.
Sure.
He says, in my view, we need a massive federal jobs program that puts millions of people back to work. We must end our disastrous trade policies. We need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, and we have to fight for pay equity for women.
No, those are all pipe dreams. I mean, because it's the government. The government spends so much more on the jobs because you have all the administrators and bureaucrats and and hacks associated. So for every $50,000 job building a road, there's how many bureaucrats have to touch that thing? I mean, it's
well, if you look at the overhead,
in the sector.
If you look, typically overhead in the federal government runs around 2 or 3%. In the private sector, typically overhead runs anywhere from 12 to 30%. But number one,
Tom,
so you're saying that what FDR did, putting millions of Americans back to work after the last time Republicans crashed the economy in 1929, that was not successful. That we shouldn't be emulating that. We shouldn't learn from that.
Well, I think that we got a lot of benefit from the Works Projects Administration.
Right, so that's what Bernie is suggesting. Why don't we just do that again? You got a whole, look at Baltimore. You got a whole city, that's with a mind-boggling unemployment rate. Let's create jobs for those people. It's not like we don't have $3 trillion worth of infrastructure that needs to be fixed.
Well, if you're going to pay somebody $30,000, $40,000 in welfare benefits, why not have them start cleaning up the alleys and streets of Baltimore? I mean,
first of all, I don't know anybody making $30,000 or $40,000 in welfare. But beyond that, what you're suggesting, it sounds like what you're saying is the same thing FDR said, which is the same thing that I can't say that Bernie's ever said this, but I think he would probably agree with the sentiment that the best welfare program is a job.
Absolutely, but the problem, Tom, is that as you and I speak, and as you and I even agree, once Congress gets a hold of these highway job programs, they become boondoggles. And I'm speaking as somebody who grew up in the Boston area, of the $20 billion spent to build the Big Dig, I mean, how many permanent jobs were created? Zero, except if you count the toll collectors.
Yeah, well,
I mean, but a lot of people, that was sold.
No, I disagree. I disagree, Neil. If the Big Dig was successful in reducing the traffic problems in Boston, and I used to travel, I lived in New Hampshire. I've spent in aggregate probably half a year in Boston, at least in Boston traffic. If the Big Dig helped solve the part of the traffic problem in Boston, then it did create jobs and it continues to create jobs. That's the whole point of infrastructure.
No. I'll dial that back, Tom. But,
all right. Let's move on to campaign finance reform because we just have a minute and a half left.
Sure.
Bernie says, as a result of Citizens United, American democracy is being undermined by the ability of the Koch brothers and other billionaire families. These wealthy contributors can literally buy politicians. We need to overturn Citizens United.
No way.
So you like that billionaires are, over the weekend it came out that Marco Rubio has his own private billionaire. Therefore, he's taking seriously as a Republican candidate, that without a billionaire, you can't be a serious candidate for president of the United States. You think that that's a good thing?
I don't know if that's true. And
it's in the New York Times. I mean, they quoted Marco Rubio.
There would be no Eugene McCarthy campaign if it wasn't for like three very wealthy men. I don't know if they might be billionaires today. It's just, it should be decided on ideas. You can spend $1 billion on a candidate.
If it should be decided on ideas, Neil, then you're talking about campaign finance reform, aren't you? Rather than decided on who writes the biggest check?
I have a problem with the government supporting candidates running for the government and then some bureaucrat getting quarterly reports and fine.
So we're back to to the default conservative position that you trust billionaires more than you trust our elected representatives and the people who elect them.
I trust the American people to make the right decision, however the information comes to them.
Okay, that sounds nice, but if it's only going to come to them by billionaires, what have you got? You've got
but
a
there's
plutocracy.
A lot of billionaires on the left, Tom, that are very successful in moving political agendas. The billionaires are pushing Keystone.
I would love to see more than one or two of them. Actually, no, I wouldn't. I think the whole system is rotten. Neil McCabe.
Buffett's fighting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
TheWashingtonMercury.com. Thank you, Neil.
All right, be good.
Good talking with you.